Hi, video diary of a grieving father, which is what I am. I've just been grieving. I hear there's no word for person who lost their child. There's no word for it. So I want to talk a little bit about Sumaria. A few months ago when I was doing a paint job in our house uptown, I took a few days off to put in some, really long days to try to knock this out. And I, of course, put on as much of the YouTube videos about the ancient Sumerian tablets, trying to avoid like the craziest ones, which were, full-on aliens and people making, extrapolations off of those ideas. I just wanted the as much like factual information about what they contained, because there's hundreds of thousands of them. And whereas we know of Egypt for forever, for thousands of years, Sumeria was really only uncovered or rediscovered in the late 1800s. So it predates Egypt. And many of the stories that are in the Sumerian tablets talk about things like that show up in later religions, but in a more watered down version. The Sumerian tablets are ridiculously detailed about their pantheon of interfighting outer space gods. They call them those who came down from outer space and brought writing and metallurgy and farming and technologies that they didn't have. So take it or leave it, and then the flood myth is in there. When you start to compound these things and realize how much of what we perceive now to be just obvious stories from our own traditions are really hearkening back to that. And I personally do not feel or believe in a God, but the Sumerian tablets, like when they talk about their gods, who came to mine, take gold, whatever, bred humans for their utility, for their utilitarian purposes. Supposedly we were hybridized or tweaked. This is in their tablets. And they got what they wanted and finally left, split with the goods. And this is supposedly after hundreds of thousands of years. So it's a rabbit hole. But this then took me into, what are the oldest buildings in the world? What is the oldest structure that we all agree was made by human hands at a period of time that's truly remote, but we agree that it's there? And although Göbekli Tepe was found, which predates the pyramids by like 6,000 years or 5,000 years, and Stonehenge by 6,000 years. It's way older than anything we had, and that's a very current excavation. There's a wall in Greece, in this mountain at the face of a cave, that they agree that Neanderthal was there and Homo sapien was there, and that wall, which blocked the wind, is somewhere around 100,000 years old. And then all the speculation about the age of the Sphinx, and then the fact that there's pyramids all over the world, and forget about the ones that are disputed, like the Bosnian pyramid or the pyramids in China. There are definite pyramids that are outside of Egypt and South America, like in the Canary Islands, and then around off the coast of Africa, East Africa, and in Asia. So I don't know. It's just a thing. And Forrest and I were constantly discussing the origins of humanity. Where are these structures from? How could they have been built? When you really look at the construction, the interlocking, three-dimensional kind of construction, which is the oldest of all the megalithic sites, it's a mystery still of how they managed to move such heavy things and interlock them with no mortar. And the best work is the oldest work. It's usually the other way around. So this is also part of the reason I do not believe in the traditional stories that we tell about gods. Lastly, do I believe that my son had a soul? Or that I have one? I don't know, but neither does anyone. It could be a thing in there, in us, or maybe it's just our brains. It's just this is the soul. I've always felt something in me was alive before, existed before, but I've accepted that I will not answer that question here. So, does some essential part of him still exist? Outside of the semantics of him living in our memories and the wave of his life affecting everybody, because it still does. And that is life after death. It certainly is. Affects life after you're dead. Like Beethoven affected many lives. But his own life, I would love to feel that he survives. But in truth, it more feels like he has returned to a place where everything is just combined. And that's not so bad. What's bad is that he died in this terrible way before he fulfilled himself in this world. That's what's bad.